All right, the U.S. dollar has been weak and getting weaker for much of this year. Do you believe the greenback is on its last legs or ready for a rebound? Our guest says the latter is probably the better bet. Marc Chandler is Chief Foreign Exchange Strategist at Brown Brothers Harriman and author of this book, Making Sense of the Dollar, Exposing Dangerous Myths About Trade and Foreign Exchange. Marc, it's a pleasure. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Well, this time, where we saw the euro dollar about this level, I don't know, a little less than a year ago, the dollar made a pretty nice little comeback before dropping again. Is the dollar set right now to rebound?
I don't think the dollar is poised to rebound right now, though we've had a good two-day correction this week. I think that the fundamentals still aren't in place, and the key fundamental I'm looking at is a tightening of U.S. monetary policy, either anticipated in a real sense or for the Federal Reserve. There's a lot of talk in the market today that the Federal Reserve may drop its recent statement that it'll keep rates low for an extended period of time. If we see even something like that, I think the fundamentals will be kicking in. But in the short run, I'm afraid that probably the dollar is under a little bit more pressure.
Marc, but looking back over history, it does seem like deja vu in terms of the talk about central banks and other countries and buyers abandoning the dollar as a reserve currency, even if you look back maybe 15 years, right? Yeah,
no, I agree with you. I was just looking at some articles. You know, you're all familiar with the Economist article saying the world abandoning the dollar, newspaper articles saying that central banks in Asia diversifying reserves, OPEC countries thinking about denominating oil in other currencies. These articles that I'm referring to appeared in February 1995. So, yes, a bit like deja vu.
What's going to be the main story around the dollar a year from now, Marc? I mean, is it going to be that it's stabilized, or is it going to be that we really do have a change in the global reserve currency? I think that would be a very difficult thing for countries to do. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that, that these central banks typically operate at a glacial speed, and I think there's a lot of good reasons why the dollar is the world's largest reserve currency now, and why its share has really remained relatively stable for the last 20 years, leaving aside the little hiccups around the time of EMU and the European Maastricht Treaty and a common euro. But before that, generally speaking, the dollar made up roughly two-thirds of world reserves. Today it makes up just shy of two-thirds of the world reserves. The euro is really the sum of its parts. The legacy currencies like the écu, the Deutschmark, French franc made up about 25% of the world's reserves back in, say, 1990. Today it's just a little bit more than 25% of the world's reserves. If there has been a shift, it's away from the low-yielding Japanese yen and toward the higher-yielding current account deficit British pound.
And Marc, if you look at other nations, you look at all of Europe and you look at Japan, those areas have structural problems that the U.S. does not, that should give this country and our greenback stability.
Well, I really think, Dagan, that what happens is that these macroeconomic and macro considerations don't necessarily help us avoid problems, but let us better deal with them. So, for example, one of the most telling things I think about Japan, which has had the strongest currency over the last 12 months, the thing that concerns me about Japan, by the end of next year, they're going to have 3 million fewer workers than they did in 2005. The U.S. is the only major industrialized country where the fertility rate is beyond the replacement of the workers. That's 2.1. The U.S. is the only major industrialized country that has a growing population. This is important for dealing with the coming problems, whether it's pension, budget deficit, long-term problems. Growing population is important. The other point I'd make is that many people suspect the U.S. has lost its innovative edge. Last year, there was one company in the United States that got more patents, or I should say it applied for more patents than all the BRICS put together. I don't own the stock in this company, but it's IBM.
Yeah. So hey, you know what? Well said, and we're nice to hear it. We didn't get to the money supply issue. We'll have to get you back on to talk about all the money, literally all the money that's out there, Marc.
Great. Thank you very much.
There's a lot of it. Marc Chandler with Brown Brothers Harriman and author of Making Sense of the Dollar. Thank you.
That's